So welcome to all of y'all, and thank you so much for joining us today. Today is a very exciting time for Suffolk Project Lifesaver Search and Rescue. I'm so glad to have this day get here with us. About 6 years ago, our board saw a need for an aerial scout. Suffolk has so much rural land and a great dismal swamp, and we felt that we needed a device that could go up and out opposed to going through. It would provide a quicker resolution than manually, methodically going through a cornfield or swamp. We decided to start raising money to purchase one. It took us about 4 years to raise the money, thanks to some generous donations, particularly Joe and Kathy Kenda. They helped us raise most of the funding for the aerial scout, or as we lovingly call it, the Kenda Scout. Because he really did pay for it. Every year we have a Kentucky Derby party as our fundraiser. Joe Kenda would basically do anything Kathy and I asked him to do to raise money, like anything. I won't tell you our terminology, but yes, and he was very gracious to do whatever we needed to do.
Keep in mind the statute of limitations is still in effect.
Yes, we're well aware of that. Thank you.
Don't make any admissions.
Mr. Kenda.
Right.
So anything from selling personal voicemail greetings, private dinners, homicide hunter posters, and the list goes on. One of his biggest fans and enthusiastic purchasers of anything Joe is Faye Askew.
Yeah. I have all three of them.
She is such a crush. Whoever bid against her, she was standing up and giving the evil eye. This is mine. So we all knew that she had it. And I think we could sell her an hour just to sit and look at him. She'd pay anything for that. We have had many other generous donors such as Home Instead, Chesapeake Controls, Nelms Corporation, Suffolk Pilot Club, and many others over the years, and we are so blessed and grateful that they saw the need just like we did and really stepped up to the plate. We finally acquired the Kenda Scout in 2019, but still had several hurdles to overcome before it was ready to fly and donate to the city. And of course, then COVID hit and nothing got accomplished. So now we are finally ready to donate this valuable piece of equipment to the city of Suffolk and Suffolk Fire and Rescue in the hopes that it will save a life someday.
So first of all, Susan, I want to say thank you, not only to Susan, but the board, but certainly Susan. Today it's about our clients, really. It's about the board, and Joe's philanthropy and the board's philanthropy is without question. But Mason, we have about 75 clients roughly.
We have 61 right now.
61.
We've got one more coming in tomorrow and another one next week.
So that's truly who's going to win today, is our clients out there. And as you all know from the board and certainly the city, that Fire and Rescue will take the clients that are identified, children through adults, and we have to find them. And that's really, this is operationally going to assist us to find our clients much quicker. So our conventional way right now is a transmitter and a responder, and then we go out there and we foot pound the swamp, the cornfields. We have one client over off in Holland right now, 58 in the bypass, that loves to just wander out there on 58. So it might be a paved area, but certainly that's a pretty dangerous place to be. So our 62 clients that we're talking about right now will benefit, but also our return to service time from our operational folks will be much quicker. And certainly with the aerial drone, the Kenda Scout, and the elevation that we get from there, we're talking about minutes versus maybe up to an hour on a conventional way. So on behalf of Fire Rescue, certainly on behalf of the city, we definitely appreciate the kind of generosity and certainly the donation, but we're going to utilize it, we're going to maintain it, we're going to keep it as part of our inventory, but always give respect to not only to the board, but certainly to the Kendas for their kind of generosity. So thank you so much. Susan, thank you.
Thank you.
Job well done.
Okay, I'm glad, again, as we mentioned when we started, we're glad everyone was able to come out today and help us celebrate this valuable asset to the city and the citizens of our city. Project Lifesaver, actually, to give you a little brief history if you don't know, Project Lifesaver actually started in Chesapeake Sheriff's Office in 1999. It was officially born in 99. They got the concept and the ideas in 98 when Sheriff Newhart at the time attended a sheriff's convention where a little small county in North Carolina was testing this technology based on, if you're as old as I am, you remember a show called Mutual of Omaha's Wild Kingdom. They were testing the same technology that they were using to track migrational habits of animals, But they said that those devices are so good, you know, we're having a heck of a problem with dementia patients and Alzheimer's patients wandering. Let's see if something like this works. So they did a little study and they brought the information back, and that's when Sheriff Newhart got the information, turned it over to Gene Saunders, who was a colonel with the sheriff's office at the time, and that's when Project Lifesaver, the ball got rolling. We found out about the program in late 2000. And the way we found out about it, one of their clients had moved to our city and had wandered. The family had forgotten about the Project Lifesaver program because Dad had never wandered before. So they called us out because we were handling search and rescue for the city. So that night we found out about Project Lifesaver because eventually the family remembered it. They contacted them. Every time I see Chief Saunders about it, I joke with him and I say, you know, that first search, y'all try to take credit, but we made the find because one of our dogs, one of our search and rescue dogs, actually made the find, and the helicopter come over after the fact. So it was a joint effort, but we found out about the program that night. It was in August of 2000 when we found out about the program. We asked, could we get it? We were told by the International Office, Chief Saunders, that they were working with law enforcement first. They said they would have to offer it to the police chief. If he turned it down, they would offer it to the sheriff. If he turned it down, then it was ours. Fortunately for us, unfortunately for them, both the sheriff at the time, before your time, the sheriff at the time and the police chief at the time, both of them turned it down. They didn't see a value in it, and I'm not saying that to be mean, but I don't think they really understood the concept. We did because we saw it work that night. We got the program. Our first people went through the training in fall of 2000. We got our first client, who happened to be the one that wandered into our city, had moved in but had wandered in our city. He became our first client in the program, and that was in early 2001. So we're actually celebrating our 21st anniversary this year of our clients in the program. The technology of the equipment has really evolved over the years. This particular receiver here that we use is the 4th generation. There's a 5th generation out now, and the people in the international office used to give me a hard time because I won't buy it. It's not user-friendly. This is cheaper and more effective than what the 5th generation is, and they've recalled the 5th generation now because they realized I was right and they're revamping it. But every time this comes out, the equipment actually gets cheaper, believe it or not, instead of more expensive than the older generations. It's a lot more effective. Chief Barakey mentioned earlier about the wrist. This is one of the bands that the clients wear. The tracking range on this emits a signal constantly. The tracking range on this with a handheld receiver is approximately 1 mile. We can track with a stick antenna, I call it. Goes on a magnetic mount on the roof of a vehicle, which gets you into an area quicker. The only thing is you only have a half-mile plane of range with that. This is going to tell you direction. If Mr. Smith wandered that way, and I quickly will know which direction he's headed, which stick you don't. After that, they finally went aerial, and this is before the drone thing. What the international office did was they had helo classes, and they had people certified and trained to go through helicopters. They had 2 helicopters, one they owned, which stayed at Hampton Roads Airport. Project Lifesaver International had, and they had deals set up with Norfolk Police Department and Virginia Beach as well. If they needed a helo, they provided the pilot, we had to provide the searcher. We had at the time 3 people in our department that went through the certification training for that. They found out it wasn't cost effective, and then when the drones hit the market and they struck the deal with Lockheed Martin, the rest is history from this point. We got a heck of a deal on that. People ask me the cost, and when I tell them the cost, they roll their eyes, and I say, we're not talking about a Walmart. This is military grade. Lockheed Martin broke their partnership, not in a bad way. They broke their partnership with Project Lifesaver International because they have a huge government contract now for the military because of what's going over in the Middle East and so forth. So with that being said, we're going to do a demo outside. You'll get a chance to see this, and it'll be in a close proximity. We're going to do a demo outside in a few minutes. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to turn this over to Dave, and he's going to explain a little bit more about the drone and how that functions and how the two work together. Okay.
How y'all doing today? My name's David Dickens. I'm a senior firefighter with the City of Suffolk. Been with the Project Lifesaver since it was introduced into the City of Suffolk because they had all of us trained using this equipment here. so that if we had a search, we have them at each fire station has this equipment assigned to it so we can get out there quickly. When the drones were introduced, I am a drone pilot with the City of Suffolk also for our communications team, so that fell under us also. Now, where he said you have a mile range when you're using the handheld, this gives us a little bit better range because we can get above the up in your elevation to get above any type of ground interference or terrain features. So with this, if we put this up approximately 150 feet, we'll go from a 1 mile range to a 3 to 5 mile range. So generally with the drone, what we'll end up doing is finding our last point seen, take the drone, stick it up 150 feet, do a 360 and see if we get a signal. If we do happen to get a signal at that point, then what we'll do is take, since it's a 3 to 5 mile range, I'm going to err on the side of caution, we'll move 3 miles in that direction, put the drone back up in the air, do a 360 to see if it's still in that same direction. If so, then we'll bring the drone down, move 3 more miles, and on that third hop, when you put it up, it should be behind you. So that way you've got 2 points at where you can say that we're getting a signal within this area. So we can kind of converge our ground troops in and then bring the drone into that area and kind of assist with that. We also have 2 other drones that we have with the city, one having a FLIR camera, and it also has a zoom camera that we can use alongside this. So when we do get into that closer area, we can put that drone up, and it's got a FLIR camera, so if it's a big field area, you can do a quick search with that, which will help cut down your search time. We also have a zoom camera for the payload on that. That's a 20 times zoom. Are y'all familiar with where Station 6 is on Kings Fork Road? I've put that drone up 350 feet and seen the Newport News crane, the big blue crane over Newport News. You could look at the Mills Godwin Bridge from right behind Kings Fork Station and see the cars going across and say, that's a red pickup truck, that's a little SUV vehicle. So you've got a very good zoom on that. And then we also have the smaller drones, which are kind of our scouts, our rapid deploy. They're quick and easy to get out and up in the air. Where these are going to take a few minutes longer to get connectivity and get them up in the air, we can put that scout up real quick, get that out, do a search while these are connecting up and getting everything operational here. So we have multiple drones. We have multiple 12 pilots within the City of Suffolk at this point. So each shift has pilots on them. So when we do have a call out, we can grab the equipment needed and get out there as quickly as possible. So this is definitely going to be a very, very good asset to help cut or decrease our time. So y'all are familiar how the system works, correct? So when you're turning around, you're listening for a beep with this device here.
The transmitter on the table right there is what he's tracking right now.
So it's not going to really vary in here because I'm so close, but outside, if that was a distance away, this would actually be a softer chirp, and as I come around to it, you'll get a louder, stronger beep with it. This does not beep. On the tablet that we're flying with this, there's a signal bar, and you can watch that signal bar to see where your signal gets stronger at for your direction of travel. So essentially, we're going to do the same thing with this, which is launch it straight up, do a 360 with it, and when it gets to that point where you see the strongest signal, we'll know that's our direction of travel. So then we'll advance 3 miles in that direction, put it up again, and hopefully from this point, I'm going that way 3 miles, hopefully I'm going this way with it, so we can triangulate and zoom in a lot quicker. But the antenna is the payload for this one, and we can set it up just like this to identify the different signals.
And to fall back and to give you some insight on that, every transmitter has a different frequency. In other words, if I'm looking for EC, I'm not going to find you Barakey because I got your frequency number in. So it's a fail-safe so that. And the question is always asked, is it possible to have two frequency numbers the same in your area? Yes, it's possible. I mean, because look at it like this. This program now, which started in Chesapeake in our backyard, and then we got it shortly after, is in all 50 states and 4 foreign countries. And it was all started right here in Chesapeake. Well, if somebody from Kalamazoo, Michigan comes to visit family in Suffolk, and they're in that program, and I've got a client that's got 216-400, and theirs is 216-400, and we have a search for our client. People say, well, what do you do? I said, it's very simple. I send somebody to the one that's not missing. We take the battery out of the transmitter and they're babysitting until we find our subject. So it can happen. It's a possibility that could happen. And if it happens, we have a plan B to get around it so we're finding the right person. But again, that's the transmitter there. Everybody's frequency is different, so that there's less chance of that happening. So camera payload for the Lockheed Martin unit, if I remember correctly, was like $5,000 or $6,000 just for the camera to go on.
Now, is that attached with the antenna, or you gotta have to take it off?
Take that off, because what happens is, and he'll talk more about it, but what happens is when the subject is located at the area, it's going to send the coordinates back to the operator. They'll have the coordinates, so they can send it back out, and in the memories it can go back out. They put the camera on, it can go right back to those same coordinates, and now we can see the subject sitting in the beam field, so to speak. And the reason I use that example, that very first subject I talked about, we found him in the middle of a beam field 22 miles from point last seen in an August day that was 96 degrees. The gentleman was 77 years old. So with that being said, we were able to locate him with our search and rescue team, but it would have been much faster that night had we had this program, and definitely had that. So.
Yeah, with the different payloads, you would have to return to home, change it out, then send it back out. As to where we're getting a strong signal in that area, me being a pilot, I'm flying this. Mr. Kessinger, or Master Firefighter Kessinger, is a pilot also. He can have the other drone manned up. He looks at my coordinates. I'll say that I'm at this altitude. He'll come at a separate altitude. He can come in, and that way we're not taking a chance. Well, I had a signal here. I brought it back to me to change my payload. By the time I got back out there, now they're on the run. They're on the move.
You're always looking for a charity that has a working plan. The difficulty with many charities is the money's swallowed up by administrative costs, and the people who really need something don't get it. I found out that this organization is basically run by the fire department, which is already tax supported. So they're out there doing their job, and they also have the ability, by using this system, to find people that have a wandering disorder. In the past, it would be 3 days and they'd find them dead somewhere, face down in a ditch. The longest it's taken them to find someone with this equipment is 27 minutes. It saves lives. And I'm happy to be a contributor to that process, because the money goes to what's needed, not to administrative costs.